Retail is one of the number one ways to make an activated downtown and create place. The retail piece is essential for seeing some of the problems we have today go away. If there's not an empty storefront, there's maybe less of an opportunity to have blank space or places where people aren't going.
Hello, Monica. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you.
Hi, Nisha.
Hi.
Well, good. Monica, help us to understand your background in real estate and how you connected with the UW, our Department of Real Estate.
Yes, definitely. So I have been a commercial real estate broker since 2000. I went to the UW. I was actually a primatology major. During that time, I was also interning at my family's company, Wallace Properties. And during that time, I started realizing that maybe I didn't want to be Jane Goodall. Maybe I wanted to be a real estate broker. And so I asked Bob Wallace, my uncle, and Joan Wallace, my aunt, if I could stay on after graduation and try brokerage. And now it's 2024 and I'm still doing it. So that's how I got started in brokerage. My main focus is retail brokerage as far as commercial real estate goes. And then as far as how I got involved with the MSRE program is that I was asked to be on the Runstead Advisory Board. And that is because Jeff Lyon was a former board member, and he was the CEO of Kidder Mathews. I came to Kidder Mathews in 2021, and so when I came over here, Jeff was retiring as CEO, and we needed to find someone who would be an engaged member with the advisory board. So at that time, I said I would love to, for many reasons. Being on that board is a way to give back, and then also a way to connect with some of the main leaders in commercial real estate in the Seattle area. So with that, I started to become more involved in the MSRE program through some presentations, which Nisha was at one of my presentations, and then also through the mentorship program.
So now you've been in industry over like 20 years. That's amazing. So from there, I would love to know about your commercial retail experiences right now. Like what do you think about the retail, why it's so important in placemaking at this time? And you have seen so many changes in the real estate market too. How it's now, like why it's so important on even ground level?
So I would argue that, well, of course I would argue because I'm a little biased, but I would argue that retail is one of the number one ways to make an activated downtown and create place. Not only does it create a neighborhood, but if you even take it down to a smaller scale, if you have an apartment building or an office building, it's creating a place for that apartment building. You may not remember that there's, whatever it's called, main on main apartments, but you might remember that wonderful restaurant that's in the ground floor on that corner. And so it's important not only from a neighborhood standpoint, but it's also important as a building owner or a developer in realizing that it's a sense of place for their building as well. So I would argue that the retail piece is essential for seeing some of the problems we have today go away. If there's not an empty storefront, there's maybe less of an opportunity to have blank space or places where people aren't going. And having people places is important.
Right. Now, as a broker, do you tend to see like developers are focusing on that retail space, or is just like more multifamily, or where their focus is, and how do you even handle that?
Yeah. So, I mean, no developer is the same, is the number one thing I would say. But really what we are seeing, so there are different types, and there's a scale. I mean, there's a range. So some developers are told by the city they must do retail. And so they do the least amount of retail they can, not really well thought out retail. And so that may stay empty. And that's not what's important to them. What's important to them is to build their apartments. And they may not be seeing how important it is to have your lower level activated. So you've got, that's one range. And then it goes all the way up to, I mean, I work on projects where the retail was such a major part of the project that all of the considerations were made. They brought in adequate parking, which is a big one, adequate parking, critical mass. Instead of just doing 5,000 square feet of retail, they did 50,000 square feet of retail and really made it a retail destination. So really, it's, you know, one developer may have different goals than the other developer. So I don't think we can say exactly what a developer is thinking, but I will say the projects where there is more critical mass and there's more thought that's gone into the retail, generally they have a successful project.
That's amazing. So I got another follow-up question. So the buildings that you tend to see now that has, like, you know, thought out retail, and you know, residency as well. So do they tend to get better, like, cap rates and better price when you are like selling them, or even when you're renting them out? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Once again, it's kind of development by development, but I don't have any data right now, but I do know that I have certain developers who will really focus on their retail, because even if it's a bit of a loss leader from a rental rate or economics on the ground floor, they believe that if they've got the right retail on the lower level, that they will be able to charge maybe a little bit more than the project across the street. I also have developers who, I have many developers who will be very clear on, these are the retailers we want, and we're willing to do what we can to get those retailers, but these are who we want. And the reason for that is, once again, specifically because they see that as creating a place that people want to live. So yes, retail, some developers do believe that retail will help with their rents and ultimately with their cap rates.
That's great. And Monica, would you like to share some of your, like, past projects or the projects that you're currently working on that just provide us a little bit more, you know, insight of the retail and these uses?
Yeah, definitely. Past projects, I probably, if you look at the city of Mercer Island, I kind of consider that one of my past projects as far as downtown Mercer Island. I was the leasing broker on 4 of the 6 mixed-use projects that have gone in there over the past several years. And it's great, once again, coming back to that placemaking, it's great to drive through downtown Mercer Island. And because it's such a small market, you can really see the difference, and you can see the activation, and you can see the energy. I'm mostly proud of downtown Mercer Island because we were able to retain some of the tenants from the older buildings, such as Einstein's Bagels is a good example. They were loved for decades, and when their building was torn down, the neighbors were mourning it, and so we made sure to bring them into our new project. So anywhere from retaining some of the older tenants to bringing Neoposto into downtown Mercer Island, and bringing quality services. I mean, we've got dentists, we've got a new vet clinic that just opened up. So that's one that I'm very proud of, is just Mercer Island. But then what I'm working on right now is in downtown Redmond, and that one's been very exciting because it's directly across from the downtown Redmond light rail station. And so it's been fun to see how what used to be a single level strip mall that go from single level strip mall into this beautiful property that spans 2 different buildings with 30,000 square feet of retail. And I'm working on that now, and we're excited to see it'll be opening over the next several months, and we're excited to see the retailers that will be coming.
That's awesome. So how early on do you get started with these projects?
I get started as early as when they've got when the developer has the property under contract. So that's ideal because then you've got the retail piece, especially if retail is important to the project. It's very important to have someone who knows retail and understands how to lease retail and understands what tenants need and what potentially a neighborhood is missing, and being able to be a part of that design team. So the ideal situation is to be involved from day one. And you know, there are many different times where I've come into a project after it's broken ground, and for instance, they'll be like, "Yeah, this is our restaurant space," and I'll look around and I'll say, "Okay, how do they vent?" And they're like, "Oh, we don't know." Okay, how much power do I have? 100 amps. None of this is conducive to a restaurant space. So I will get involved if it's a great project. You know, you can figure out ways around all of these, but getting involved sooner than later is always better.
That's great. So it's a teamwork. It seems like if everyone works together from the start, it's way better. And I think you're able to influence developer about the retail space or what they should and shouldn't be doing. Well, is that correct to say?
Yeah, that's and you know, I come into it with a very retail oriented. So many times I'll be like, "This is how it must be for retail." Well, they also have 800 apartment units above, so I don't, you know, it's not that every developer will always take all of my advice as sage, but at least we can figure out where there could be some potential problems in the beginning.
That's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that. So some of my cohorts, they're graduating this year. I still have an year left in the program. What advice would you give to a smart-driven student about to enter into real estate industry?
Advice. I would say wherever you end up. So I'm not going to talk too much about your search to where you end up, but wherever you do end up, be present. And when I say be present, this is not a work from home, back to work conversation. This isn't physically, although physically I can say that's also important, but mentally. Make sure that you are present, that you are engaged. There's a lot to learn in real estate. So, and in commercial real estate, there's no manual for it. So it really is key that you're present, that you're listening, that you're learning. Always be learning. So I always say that I know what I can, but there's always more to learn, and there's always new stuff to learn. So always keeping up on not just what you learned in college, not just what they taught you, but how you can also complement that and grow it. Also, another key is making others' lives easier. Many times when you come into a new role, you need to learn a lot. Once again, always back to learning, but the key is to also give. So as you're learning, making sure that you're trying to figure out ways where you can make people's lives easier. Make yourself indispensable as much as you can and as soon as you can.
That's amazing. I have a specific question, so I will say it's for me. I will have to ask. If someone wants to become a commercial broker and that's what they want to do, I have a real estate experience, a little bit commercial, but residential. But there are some of my colleagues, they only have college. They don't have any experience yet. What advice would you give them? Where should they even start after graduating to become a successful commercial broker?
This is a question I get asked often.
Yes,
from Nisha,
I imagine.
your cohort. and others. You know, it's first of all getting into commercial real estate brokerage, because it is such a specialized industry. It really comes down to mentorship is so important. And so, you know, there's probably not one like specific way to get into it and be successful. I think you need to have try to get as many opportunities as you can, get in front of as many people as you can, because in commercial brokerage, as we mentioned earlier, you're going to have to learn a lot. So if you're going to be learning a lot, you need to find somebody who's committed to that. Well, they're not going to be committed to that unless they know that they're going to be getting some engagement from you. You're going to make their lives easier, et cetera. So, there are different avenues to go. I would say be thoughtful in how you go about it and where you end up, but take what you can. For instance, just get your foot in the door. It's such a hard industry to even get your foot in the door. So that would be my advice is I have a good example of this. We have, I know he's a broker now. It was a former student who met with over 50 people in the industry before he graduated. And he now is a broker. And it took him just consistently pounding the pavement while he was also taking a full course load. I'm going to remember somebody like that as a mentor or somebody who may be hiring a junior broker. I'm going to remember that person who wouldn't leave me alone a lot more than somebody who called me once. I said, I don't have an opening, and maybe they go have coffee with me and then I never hear from them again.
Makes sense. No, I think that's a great advice. Now, now we know what to do, and I would love to know what not to do. What advice would you give they should ignore?
So what advice from others should people ignore?
Yeah, altogether, yes.
There's probably no advice you should ignore, because once again, you're growing, you're coming out into the real world. You're having to, once again, in commercial real estate specifically, you're coming into a very niche and nuanced and you have to have a lot of knowledge coming into it. So any advice you can get, you should listen to, as long as it fits within your core values. So that would be the one thing I would say, is always listen to your core values. Now, if your core values are to work no more than 10 hours a week, commercial real estate brokerage isn't for you, or nothing in commercial real estate. So that's something you have to figure out before you get into the industry. But if you're willing to work hard, be present, learn, I would say taking any advice you can and letting it fill in the holes, fill in the gaps. And if it doesn't work with your core values, or you find there's always different ways to do the same thing. So if you find something that leads you to a result that works better with your personality, go with that advice over what somebody else may have told you that didn't work with your core values or help get you to what works with your personality.
No, I think that's a great advice, because we tend to forget about that, about our core values, especially when you're desperate, trying to get somewhere. Yeah. Thank you. So now we would like to know about your favorite charity or hobby. What do you like to do? Or the charity you love to support? So
I would say there are a few charities that I love to support that are associated with they're related to my hobbies. So I'm a huge outdoors enthusiast. I spend any of my free time I can outside. As part of a mountain biker. And so I contribute a lot of my time and resources as I can to the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance, which is an association that builds trails, maintains trails, and then also advocates for mountain biking in the Washington state. Why that's important to me is not only selfishly, but the more we can make Washington state a place that's world-class mountain biking, which it is considered some of the best in the country, the more livability we have in Washington, which brings more people, which brings more workers, which brings more companies. So it's twofold there. And then also my family, a few of my family members have been struck with cancer over the years. And so another one that's near and dear to my heart is the Fred Hutch has an Obliteride, which is a bicycling and running event that is a huge fundraiser. So once again, it's a great way for me to contribute time and resources while also being able to get out and ride my bike.
That's great. And I'm sorry to hear about your family, but I think that's fantastic what you do. Now, what's your favorite place for mountain biking? Do you have a favorite place?
don't know if I do. I can't tell you because then you'll tell others.
Yeah, then I'll be there.
I love it. It's
No,
like someone's secret fishing spot. They never will give away their secret spot. Sometimes I've been out where I've had people tell me, turn off your Strava because
Yes,
we don't want you to post where this is. So
you get it, Jeff. You get it.
Monica, I love that you covered so much as far as placemaking and commercial real estate, lifelong learning about continuing to learn, mentorship, your advocacy for the outdoors. So if people wish to get a hold of you in some way, what's the best way for people to do so?
So you can always, probably phone or email are the best for me. Email, I tend to monitor throughout the day. And then phone, I tend to answer when I can and check for voicemails when I can. So probably email, but phone works too.
Good. We'll put both of those as links on here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff and Nisha.
It was a pleasure to have you. It was exciting too. Thank you.